going to be starting. They're going to be launching a YouTube channel. That way, all of these are in one spot and
Ah, okay.
Oh,
resource for the
cool.
community. So that's where this will live. Just FYI.
Okay.
Hopefully
Okay.
they, okay, great.
That
Yeah.
sounds pretty fabulous. Well,
Yes.
and what I will do is make sure I say all the nice things.
Say anything you want. Well, we can
Oh
always edit it
no,
out.
I can't say anything that I want
We can always edit.
to say.
I say that as if I know how to edit. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm
great.
being recorded. I'm being safe.
Any questions from, I mean, I see a bunch of our friends. Hi. I see Mo, I see Janelle.
I
Hi,
know some
Becca.
of
Hi,
these
Kiana. Yeah.
folks. I know that
Yeah.
lady.
So,
Yeah,
Great.
ask me questions. Well, first let me talk about the book a little bit
sure.
more.
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
please.
Can't We Be Friends? As I said, that was the origin of the story of Eliza and I getting together 2019. Both of us were busy with other projects, and over the years, I think we finally found time to write a proposal in 2022. And then we got our respective agents at the time. We had two different agents. We still have two different agents. I just happen to have a new agent. And we definitely sat back and said, let's get this book out there because we really felt strongly about our approach to the story. We didn't want to victimize either woman. We wanted them to come across as real as possible. We also did a lot of research to find as much as we could that was publicly available about their relationship, and it was limited. I will say that up front because there was not a lot of storytelling about the relationship between a Black woman and a white woman, especially someone like a Marilyn Monroe. And then Ella Fitzgerald had her own, attitude toward publicity and promotion. So not we, but Eliza put together a Google document. I tease her about this because she is a Google Doc queen. And we really sat back and filled in. We divided our story based on themes. And then we divided it based on years. Where were these two women in 1952 or 1953 when it so happened that Ella almost lost her voice? She had a nodule on her throat. And this is sometimes a very serious situation for a singer. She had to have it removed, and she couldn't talk for 6 weeks. We did our research and discovered that Marilyn was in New York at the same time. Ella was in New York recovering from the surgery, and Marilyn was at the Actors Studio in New York. So we said, boom, they were hanging out. So we created some dialogue and messaging and what happens between them when they connected during that time period. And there was other instances. We also discovered a contract that had been written that what would have put them together to make an album, a Friends album. And they never made that album. And of course, there was pushback, and there were opposition to them coming that publicly to demonstrate and showcase their friendship. But what was it's really enjoyable about putting this book together was discovering and really researching the people around these two women, their motivations, from secretaries to managers in Marilyn's case, well, in both women's cases, husbands, husbands who were supportive, lovers who were supportive and then weren't supportive, and really digging deep into that area of storytelling and not forgetting about our primary themes, the challenges of women in a entertainment industry that looked at them as commodities versus as people, and both of them had that experience. And how did they really fight back? And Marilyn fought back. That was the other thing we were very conscious of. We didn't want to do another, oh, poor, stupid Marilyn book. And she wasn't stupid. She was a woman who had a drug habit and had an illness as it related to, but that illness was supported by the industry, and that's also a tragedy in and of itself.
Thank you, Denny, for that context.
Yeah.
My previous sort of introduction to Marilyn Monroe was sort of that idea of this like blonde bombshell, knew she got taken advantage of by Hollywood, but didn't have the context of sort of her own agency, I think, doesn't get told a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we look at one of the things about looking at the journey of women through history is the so much of history is written by men. So much of history is written by white men. So much of history is written strategically to minimize the impact of people of color, of Black men and women, and of women across the board. So when you bring that um, perspective and understanding to your research and to your storytelling, you're able to infuse your story with a variety of themes. Not every story has to be downtrodden and whatever. No, I don't like that story either. But at the same time, we are able to look at history, the world, and how different groups in society have been pushed aside. And then you have to look beyond that information in order to find the truths for your particular characters. Questions? Yes.
Go ahead, Mo.
Unmute yourself, please. I think you're muted because I can't hear you.
That would have been a great idea.
Yeah. Okay.
What I found interesting is that Ella's story is written in the first POV, and Marilyn's in the third. And usually, you kind of hear like that's never a good idea, but it worked really, really well, and I loved it. And it did something like after I really didn't feel a shift, which it was so seamless, but it also just kind of made the voice not become monotone, right? So,
Yes.
and I love that. So, how hard of a decision did you guys waffle back and forth on whether we should do first person and third person, or like how did that decision come about?
Actually, it was a very involved decision, and it was based on a couple of things. You know how in classes they'll tell you that no matter how many points of view characters you may have, that book is really one character's story. No, if you have five, even if you're doing a dual timeline, the story is really one character's story. So, in the case of Ella and Marilyn, we felt that it was Ella's book in that context. And what I mean by that is she's telling the story as she lives it. Marilyn is a memory. That's why we did third person past tense or first person past tense with Marilyn. I can't remember now. Is Marilyn she? I know that Ella's
Third person to me.
You know what I mean? I think both of them are present tense, but we used she with Marilyn. Here it is. Let me think. I'm looking. Why is it every chapter I flip to is Ella? Come on now. It's not there. This is funny. This is really funny. This is really scary. Maybe I got a weird book.
Hi, my name is Kaya Freitz, and I'm currently in the studio recording Heart's Gambit by J.D. Mayall. Chapter 1. Emma Baldwin. Harlem, 1943. When the moonlight hits the circus tents, they bleed. Ruby drops turn to rose petals before raining down on the audience. A symbol. That's all anybody wants. Something that feels bigger than them, no matter the city, no matter the time. Ma always said this when we were fortifying the fabric together, using our hands to imbue the crimson silk with our gifts. Something magical, something beautiful. And if we remind them that we're the best black circus on the circuit in the process, what's the harm? Oohs and ahs ripple as the crowd begins to file into the big top. They settle in their seats and prepare for the show as that bloody rain begins. Find Heart's Gambit wherever you get your audiobooks.
Let
me do the pages. I'm going to get to it.
Page 113 starts. I just put the.
Oh, there's my girl. Okay, what she did is first it's present tense, but it's she instead of I. So it's she picks up the blank. She does this. Marilyn did this, that, or the other. That's also helps you distinguish the voices. One of the things that we do these days, at least I believe Eliza and I both do this, we're very aware of the fact that our book is going to be audio recorded and acted out. And we talk out every scene. You got to hear it. You have to listen to it because audiobooks are huge right now. And I think they'll continue to be huge because it's just people want to get as many books in them as they possibly can. You can read, you can listen. There's even this thing that you can do with your phone and lay it on a book. I saw this advertised. I haven't done it yet or gotten the app, but you put your freaking phone on the book and it will start reading to you. It's crazy. It's scary. But scariness aside, all of these ways of absorbing story, I think it's very important. I know one thing I do in coaching people and teaching classes, I'm like, read aloud. You've got to hear, because every time you read a paragraph or a chapter or whatever out loud, you are going to be able, as an author, to automatically find things that are inconsistent, that need to be fixed, and or understand the pacing of your storytelling even more, and you'll hear your voice, even if you read monotone. Because everybody who grabs a book is going to put their own spin on it. But the first spin is the author's, because you're the only one there. All alone, sitting in your office. I could go on and on. More questions. Is everyone who's sort of hanging out with us here, first year or second year? Where are you in your journey in terms of your MFA as well as, writing your own books, what have you?
I think we're a pretty solid alumni group tonight, actually.
Oh, that's right. The name of it is moving on. You're moving on. Okay, so you're moving on, and so that means you have a work in progress that it's pretty much a done deal, or your book is completed and you're on that journey of making a decision, which you may have already made, of going traditional or indie published. So how many people here have managed to get published or are on their way to publication? Just raise something to let me know, or just shout it out, raise your hand. How many folks? Yes, yes, we'll let Adam share his news. But how about, for example, I'm just going to ask people because
I thought Kiana maybe. if I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
I think she has a book deal now,
Yeah.
I
Ooh,
believe.
ooh, ooh.
Um,
Yay.
but I think she's muted, so I don't want to
Okay.
speak for her.
Um,
Um,
there's Dan. Dan is ghosting us all. He's
cooking lamb
cooking
stew.
lamb stew. Yay. I haven't seen him in a while. But
I guess how
so
about Janelle and Mo? I mean, I haven't seen you both in a while, but I'm curious what are you working on? What's going on?
Nothing.
hey, sometimes that's a blessing.
Mo,
I'm
did you?
Um,
I'm curious
no,
about Mo.
but your book is done. Is your book done or you're still in
I
progress?
did a short story collection. I actually have one more to go.
Okay. I'm teaching a class for those who are not alumni on short stories for novelists, and there is one fabulous book that you may want to do some research on because it's by Jennifer Egan. It is
Huh?
called A Visit from the Goon Squad. And what she did was create 20 short stories that connect thematically and use a basic subject, the music industry, and technical changes in the industry. That's your subject line. But her themes are redemption and something else. But the way she's put this book together, won a Pulitzer. So she did
Her
okay.
name Jennifer.
Egan, Egan. So for folks who are in love with the short story, the other one that is short story focused is Cloud Atlas and the classic Slaughterhouse-Five. Those are a series of short stories that thematically are linked to give you an entire book. So I'm actually the reason I've devoted additional time. I think Adam knows that my teaching approach is what do I need to work on? It's very selfish. Uh, it's like, what am I challenged by, and how can I learn more so I'm less challenged? And so I work with students that way with that kind of approach. It helps me to be a better writer, I think, to just lay it out there and say these are the things. And I love to challenge myself and try new things. So that's my short story spiel. Check out her work.
I
She's
just I just ordered it. It'll come tomorrow.
fantastic.
What was
Fantastic.
the biggest challenge for you with this book?
Oh, Ellen Marilyn, that's the first time I've done a partnership,
Yeah.
worked with a co-author, and it is a different thing. I mean, we were on the same page throughout that process, especially in terms of writing the story, exchanging. Now, Eliza's a faster writer than I am. She's a more experienced author. She has 80 to 100 books that she's written. Um, I've written five. But I'm more of a student in terms of my approach is a different pacing of going for story. So meshing was a little bit of a challenge later in the process, but I'd say that just the experience of co-authoring was an excellent experience for myself. She's done it before with other authors, but it was a new experience for me. So I had to adjust. I had to be more open-minded about certain things. Now, the editorial exchange was not a problem, none of that. The story, how we wanted the story to lay out, we were totally on the same page with that. It was just pacing sometimes. Um,
Did you have what? Not to get into the weeds of this, but it's interesting to me. When you were doing that, did you have like a third person that would help with pacing, or was it really just you both mediating together?
No, well, you count on your editor to once, like, okay, we handed in a book to our editor, that was probably about 110,000 words. I think that's right. And she read it, she got back to us and said, cut 30,000 words. That's a lot. We agreed totally on where to cut and how to cut. She gave us some good direction on that, our editor, but that's who is your person. The next step was one I had an issue with because the book went from losing 30,000 words to copy edits. I wanted another round with the editor. And the editor, so there was a little bit of play back and forth on that point. But other than that, you count on, I don't know. What I'm learning in the business is you get to know your editors as you go. And there are times when you say, I think I need to pay an editor before I send it to my editor. There's, not all the time is what I'm hoping because I'm not wealthy. You don't make a fortune yet. I'm always counting on a fortune soon. And yes, I'm in the business of writing books. I want to get paid. Okay. It's not a hobby. So that is a thing to keep in mind as you keep writing your books. You'll learn. Sometimes my first editor, I love this woman to this day. She was phenomenal. And then she went to another house. And then my first editor at William Morrow, phenomenal. That was for The Other Princess. And she gave me excellent editorial feedback. And I had one of the most brilliant copy editors you can have. Copy editor can break you or make your life so fabulous, especially when you're writing historical fiction. Because, this guy, I swear he was a time traveler for The Other Princess. He was telling me what was not on a street corner in 1863 in London. And I'm like, okay, what? I believe you totally. And he was spot on. He was spot on. But then you get some people that miss the obvious and they're just fixing commas. So you have to be ready. Have to be ready.
Other questions from our friends today?
Denny, I had a question for you. I really love when novels incorporate other types of like ephemera or content. So I loved the reporter, like the interview piece of it. I love that you had the letters in there. Was that intentional? Did that come about like organically? I really thought they added so much to the book and like the context.
It was very organic because one of the things, because there were just times where we wanted that personal connection between them. Also, in the beginning of the book, we had some information that was factual that said Marilyn had sent a note, an inquiry to Ella because she wanted Ella to teach her how to sing. And we also found documentation that Ella refused to teach her how to sing because her thing was, I'm a singer. I don't know how to teach anybody anything when it comes to singing because that's just who I am. And so that gave us an indication that we could create an exchange why did Ella change her mind? So that was the question we put out there. And so those letters became a starting point for their relationship. And then when their friendship was established, it became a way for them to stay connected because these women were all over the world, traveling, doing their jobs. Poor Marilyn dealing with men like Arthur Mitchell and blah, blah, blah. I mean, sadly, the other thing that digging deep into these storylines, Eliza and I developed a true dislike for a couple of people that were out there in the world during both their lives. Then it was like, oh no, these guys were not good guys. So yeah, the letters were inspired by something that actually happened, and then we said, yeah, let's maintain that. And then there was a letter in the book that was paraphrasing an actual letter that Ella sent to her manager when he was ill in Iceland, or I can't remember. You have to forgive me. That was 2 books ago.
How long did it take you guys to write the book?
We actually wrote it for my, I'm a slow writer. So, for example, I just finished a book that took me 7 months to write. And to me, that's long, especially when you're under contract. Um, Ella and Marilyn took us, once we sat down and wrote it, we didn't miss a deadline. So I say we wrote that book in 5 months.
Wow.
That seemed, yeah, I was like, shh. And Eliza wrote it in 3, but it took me 2 more months to catch up. But we made all of our deadlines. It was good.
Do you
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I've been having horrible tech issues tonight. I haven't been trying to be antisocial. I just kept getting kicked out. So now I'm on my phone. My question was, are you guys planning on co-writing anything in the future?
Not right now. Not right now. We are, well, I'm focusing on I have a new agent and we're focusing on different types of storylines and things like that. And Eliza is doing some other things as well. So I don't think it's going to happen anytime in the near future.
I know she's actually in the program this class.
I know she is. She's a busy gal.
We
Her
had
and
a
I think,
reading open mic at Barnes and Nobles and she read.
yeah. Her and another Madeline Martin is
Yes.
also in the program. So it's pretty exciting.
Denny, I listened to Wild Woman in the Blues on audiobook and I loved that.
Oh
And
yeah.
obviously that and Can't We Be Friends, there's a musicality element like baked into both of those. Do you foresee that moving forward? Are you like planning on writing about any type of like genres of music or music in the future? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a knack for
My
it, so I'm
love
just
of
curious.
music is I love music, all genres, all time. In fact, one of the first things I do when I'm about to start a new book is look at whatever decade I'm writing in and dig into the sounds of that time period, the music of that time period. So, for example, my next book will take place in predominantly in the 1960s to the early 1970s. And it also will take place in London and in the US. And so the dominant sounds of that time period are so interesting because you go from Martha and the Vandellas and Aretha Franklin's Soul Serenade to the Beatles' Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts. So you have this cultural phenomenon of the 1960s and London to the civil rights movement and some other things happening. I'm not going to say exactly what the book's about, but all of these components have a sound to them, have the music of the people, if you will. So I love music. With Ella, to get close to her, I listened to all of her, I felt like I listened to all of her albums, but what I really focused on were her live recordings because her live recordings also gave me her style and her voice and her sassiness in how she related to her audiences. And Ella was not a very public person. She was super private, and there are only a handful of interviews. And then the people who wrote about her, until there's a biography that came out later, actually after we'd handed in our book, that was sent to me, was the only thing I've ever seen that had more of a personal Otherwise, it was mostly the other book that I read was about the songs she recorded. It really didn't dive that deeply into her personal life at all. So yeah, music is super important to me. And yes, I'll always have a soundtrack to whatever it is I'm writing, what was happening during that time period. Because it does give you atmosphere. It does give you, it's like clothes, setting, descriptions, language, slang, popularity of what were people reading. All of those things help give the story texture. More questions. I want to hear what Janella's up to. Don't sit there. What are you doing? What's going on?
I have been doing work.
Okay.
I've
Okay.
I just came back from seeing my nephew, which is why I was late. Um, but I haven't been writing. Well, let me rephrase that. I've been plotting.
Okay.
I haven't been writing, but I've been writing like the plot and little hints of like another short story, maybe. In my,
Okay.
I'm mainly focused when I do edit is my I don't remember if you remember this from my
Yeah.
manuscript.
Yeah.
But the Ryan Goes to Work story, I was thinking about making that into a full flesh novel.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
been up to. And my nephew was born 2 weeks ago, so he's like,
Oh,
right.
congratulations.
Thank you.
New family members. Yeah, but my granddaughter is you might be hearing her in the background. Oh yeah, I got one of them. Oh Lord, she's close to turning 2. It's
Oh.
it's a memory that is almost just that's a lot of work, 2-year-olds. It's not anyway, I digress quickly. But yeah, that's good. Well, keep at it and keep the thing about I remember my first book took 6 years for me to get it to the point where I was sending it out for an agent.
Hmm.
And then I got the agent, and then it took another 3 years for us to sell it. Now, it wasn't on submission for 3 years. It was only on submission for 7 months, but only 7 months. That's a long time. But that's the deal. But what was really affecting, you still have life that you had to deal with and work and whatever else, because especially that first novel. And sometimes it's like it comes all at once and you get it and you're ready to run. Sometimes it's according to what type of writer you are. And all types of writers are fine. That's one thing I disliked about some of the early training that I got because there were instructors, or now I wasn't in a formal program. I was going to conferences and things like that. And you'd get this, well, this is the way I do it, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just this perfect mix of whatever. And you're going to be out there so fast. It's also something that's bothering me on social media right now. I see quite a few advertisements from people. Yes, I'm going to say this. I've never heard of, and I know a lot of people in the industry, and they're sitting, I can teach you how to write your book so you sell it in 2025. No, you can't. I don't care who you are. No, you can't. And especially if I've never heard of you. Um, so it's your pace. And it's also some people will commit to getting this thing done the first year. As I said, it took me 6 years. I was constantly spending my summers flitting around the country going to conferences and, oh, I'm going to write it this year. Something else happened. It didn't get done, but I kept going back and I kept going back. And then eventually it became something I had to get done.
Hmm.
But that was my own pace. So a key word that I like to use a lot is to have patience with yourself. You're not comparing yourself to any other writer out there, to any other anything out there. You're really focused in on when is the timing right for you? Because that's going to be when you have your best book. And let me also remind you that debut authors are the magic bullet in publishing right now. Because if they buy that book and they can market you, and I'm talking traditional publishing, if they buy that book and they can market you, that's what they're going to do. They're going to go crazy on that first book. And that's because there's nobody sitting there knowing whether it's going to be a winner or a big winner. Okay. And so be conscious of that opportunity, especially if you're interested in traditional publishing. Having that first book go with the traditional publisher is they're going to put everything in it, and then they'll forget about you after that, unless you hit the New York Times bestseller list. Now, there's nothing, no, they don't forget, but it's just different. There's an ebb and flow, as I'm sure all of you are paying attention to the different things that are happening when you look at the New York Times bestseller list or when you look at any bestseller list. And there are trends. We have a very hot market in terms of thrillers, contemporary romances with spice, and of course, fantasy. They even created their own little name for it, romanticises. Um, and that's all fabulous. But these things keep flowing. They keep flowing. It's fluidity, and readers read. I'm very pleased that I have a loyal list, a loyal group of readers, and every time I put something out, like today, I was able to announce that my this book, ta-da, Trial of Mrs. Rhinelander, the audio book was the #1 book on Amazon. It's a bestseller in African American literature, and some other top categories. That's cool. I'm like very excited because then when I get my royalty check, back to my money interest, I'll be dancing. So be patient with yourself. There is no clock sitting over your head like a noose that says you have to get it done now. Just, keep going back and keep, what someone told me, write 200 words a day. And believe me, they add up, especially over 6 years like me.
Um, Denny, you know that we're like obviously a group of writers here. It's not just a regular book club. And I think, Kiana and Adam are lucky enough now to have this like publishing track in front of them. For those of us that are still writing, editing, suggestions on the whole agenting process that seems
Sure.
like quite a slog and difficult.
Well, I believe that I even suggested this to Adam is to get out and go to conferences. Um, and there's some good conferences out there. Writer's Digest has a good conference that involves agents, networking and meeting agents. And Drexel has opportunities like that where you can interact with professional agents. And not every agent encounter has to be, this is the agent I want to work with, especially when you're in the early stages of story development, finishing a book, etc. Sometimes you just go to a conference to network. Hey, when I get my book done, I know you and I'll send you something. Listen to what they say on panels. Um, One thing that I found that is very heartwarming, believe it or not, about publishing, because there are things that aren't heartwarming, is that people are pretty generous. They love what they do. Editors love writers. Writers love other writers. And agents love agents and other writers. And they like to talk business. So if you can get an opportunity to get out there where you can meet people and network, that's a good thing. In terms of cold solicitations, I'd say that you really want to do your research, and pay attention to submission requirements at different agency websites. Pay attention to, if you can take a couple of months, if you're really in the throes of seeking an agent because you have the first 100 pages, or you have a completed novel, you have a well-crafted pitch letter and a synopsis, so you're ready to rock and get out there, pay for Publishers Marketplace for about 3 months. It's $25 a month. Every time you see an agent that sort of like piques your interest, look them up. See when their last sale was. See what they sold most recently, what the agent has sold, but also what the industry is buying. And not that you're looking for trends, you're looking for consistency. You're looking for agents that are working, not sitting on their laurels, taking care of their big hitters. Or some agents, no names will be shared, some agents have a wealth of writers in one genre. And if you're in that genre, you don't need to be with that agency. That agent is doing a great job for 30 or 40 authors who are writing the same genre. Another agency might be doing a great job for a smaller set, but they've been around 20 years and they know people. So that's why it's a combination, networking, really digging deep into what those agents are looking for. Believe them when you look at their website and they say, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I'm open to, this is what I'm not open to. Trust them. They're telling you the truth. They don't want to, if you send them a romantasy and they're not interested in romantasies, they're throwing it away. And they're also very serious about, if you send it to one agent, you can't cherry pick through the agency, because sometimes they have a conversation about what they get that might be of interest, and they decide as an agency not to make an offer. So don't waste your time. Do your research. If you can, go to conferences anytime. As an alumni, I'm sure Drexel invites you to their events where they have agents hanging out doing their thing. Talk to other authors who are having contracts. I mean, I have an agent now that I'm very happy with, because I sat down at a conference, talked to an author, not about her agency, not about her agent, but about what was bothering me about my agent. And she said, these are the things you shouldn't, and she just, boom, laid out some beautiful insights for me. And the next thing, we went back and forth. I met with somebody else and she recommended me to her agent. And so I have a new agent. I've had a new agent for a year, but also the other thing to keep in mind right now, even though not a lot of people are sitting around selling to Hollywood, Hollywood is looking. They're always looking. So get an agent who understands film rights. If you can get an agent who's savvy about foreign rights, even though the big five will try to hang on to your foreign rights, but foreign rights are critical too. I have a book called The Other Princess that is sold in 7 markets outside of the US. And I know, I'm happy. My biggest market is Brazil. next to London, the UK. And I'm like, they got a whole new cover and all this nonsense. And I'm like, it's English, isn't it? But they want to spell it the way they want to spell it. They even have a new recording. They got another audiobook narrator. So I was confused. But anyway, that happens. But
As
those
long
are
as
the
it's out
things,
there, like it. I said, as long
sorry,
as it's over there. I said, as long as
right?
it's over there.
Yeah, because it's my UK publisher distributed to Canada, of course, the UK, and Australia. And I just got an invitation to come to a conference in Australia. Not that I don't think I'm going because my publisher won't pay for it, but it's still, fun to think about. Maybe next year I'll do something like that. I'd like to go to no, I watch too much TikTok. Australia looks scary. Some of those TikToks are ridiculous, but that's what I do. Any more questions about the business? Because we're coming on to 8 o'clock. You have something. What genre do you write?
So I'm
Tell
a
me.
I'm a
Oh,
thriller writer.
go
Uh,
ahead, Ashley.
Thriller.
Ooh, thrillers. Well,
Thriller.
thrillers are good. Thrillers are
Yeah.
good. Now, when you say thriller,
Mhm.
because there are so many categories under the umbrella of thriller, I did an event recently where I moderated a panel with the guy who writes the Orphan X series, Eric Her I can't remember his last name, but he's fabulous. And S.A. Cosby. S.A. Cosby writes crime fiction. And they are under the thriller umbrella. Um, the book hasn't even come out. His next book is called King of Ashes, and he just had a cover reveal, and it's already been bought, and it's being called The Godfather. So they're scaring me, but he writes beautiful crime fiction. Um, but but is it domestic thriller? All those different categories, Ashley. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so when I was starting the submission process, they're kind of lumping thriller and suspense in like the same category. Most agents.
Okay.
So it's technically like psychological suspense is
Oh,
what it falls under, but I've noticed they're lumping them together with thrillers.
yeah, yeah.
So that's technically
I
what it is.
I just finished a psychological thriller called The Silent Patient.
Oh, I heard it's excellent.
Oh, read that. Woo! Ooh,
Okay.
that's a good book. Well crafted. And it has that wonderful thing I love, an unreliable narrator.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Mo, tell me what you're writing.
So I actually have started the outline for um, contemporary fiction.
Okay.
And it's actually from one of my short story collections, and it's about so there was the short story is about um this this woman who has two daughters. She abandoned her family, or she left Louisiana, and she moved to Philadelphia after a bad experience with her husband. She got deeply involved in the church. The short story is how the church and its teachers affected each of the daughters.
Okay.
But
Okay.
what I'm pulling from, what I want now was like, who are you? Who was my mother? So the mother dies. And the daughters, all they know is like she was so deeply committed to the church. They don't know one of their family. They know that they have some cousins in Louisiana, and now they want to find out who they are and who their mother is.
Okay. Okay. That's definitely family. I won't call it women's fiction because women's fiction is a term I have issues with sometimes. But I like that. I like that you have a journey and suspense as there's suspense there. What are they going to discover about who they are? And how does that experience with the church mold them and also distinguish them from one another? I'm writing a book that is going to involve two sisters, and that's one thing that I'm looking forward to exploring in this story is how a grandparent and parents and their issues take hold of these two sisters who are very close, but eventually those things that bring them together are also the things that tear them apart.
That's
And
interesting.
and it's the fun of it. Nobody has a good family. I'm sorry, everybody has a good family, except in a book. It's a mess in a book. And that's
So in the short story, and that's exactly what happens. One of the sisters completely rebels. She was
yeah,
like, "Oh, that's crazy. I don't want no parts of that." The other sister is very anxious, pretty scary, and just sort of walks very timidly in life based on
yeah,
her beliefs. So
yeah, yeah. And there's a big sister book by Britt Bennett called The Vanishing Half. That has a lot of good conflict inherent in just the whole composition of the story, um, which is that's the big thing that I've found anytime I pitch or have written a proposal that an editor or agent will ask is, what's the conflict? What's the conflict? If when you know what that conflict is, because so often we writers start talking about the plot. This is what happens, and then this is what happens. And the people who want to buy a book want a book with meaty conflict. And conflict doesn't mean, somebody's duking it out physically. It's not a war. Sometimes it's different worldviews that become combative. The Vanishing Half does that well. I'm going to ask JD. I saw JD for a second. I'm going to ask everybody and see if you have something you want to add before I say I have to jump off here. I hear my granddaughter racing through the
I
house.
have been struggling with these tech issues all night, so forgive me if you've answered this question. Um,
That's okay.
I keep getting kicked out, and then I come back, and then it kicks me out again. It's been horrible, but I've appreciated the bits I was able to hear in between all the struggle. I wanted to ask you about proposals. You were just talking about proposals.
hmm
What goes into a proposal for fiction?
Okay, I can just comment on, of course, there's a synopsis. And actually, Drexel has a beautiful document that they sent to all of our instructors, and I shared with the folks that I coach this year that outlines the content for a synopsis, for example. But a proposal includes a pitch letter, a synopsis, and then 3 chapters. Typically, that's your proposal. Now, for stories that I've written that have actually gotten me contracts, I wrote a 25-page narrative synopsis that included photographs, included a breakdown of part. I mean, I gave her title, I gave her character overviews. I also attached historical landmarks that were important for that you couldn't change. For example, in the book that I'm thinking about, The Other Princess, I had when Queen Victoria's husband died. I had because that was a big change in her attitude towards a lot of things. I had the day Sierra Leone did a change in their functioning of tribal leadership versus colonial leadership. These were impactful moments in history that were a part and impacted my main character and her journey. This is biographical historical fiction, by the way. But I do this landmark thing I think it's good for whatever you're writing, because even if you're writing a contemporary story, I like to use the expression, which iPhone was out? If you write a book and it happens to be iPhone 14 versus iPhone 16, what's the capability and how are those texts going? I just got an update on something recently with this freaking iPhone. And I have to go back to square one to figure out what's going on. But if that's part of my story in contemporary, I have to be aware of what the world is doing in that moment in time. Not just the politics, not just, how are people making money and how much they make is another thing that I research early, because it tells you a lot about where they might live, what is important to them. Not everyone can be a billionaire, which is the easy out. I think Dan is struggling with his lamb stew, so I don't know if we want to ask him. He's going back and forth, but thank you, JD,
Thank
for
you.
that question.
Yeah, Denny, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was such a lovely opportunity to catch up with you and to hear a little more
Yeah.
about the book and of course always to gain your knowledge. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and throw this up on YouTube, and the people
We
who
will, yes.
couldn't make it can definitely, hopefully they'll have glean a couple of things from it. It's always a pleasure to talk books.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Denny. Thank you everyone else for joining us.
Thank you,
All
Jen.
righty.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Adam, I have a
Yeah.
question for you.
Yeah.
You didn't tell us about, well, then you can stay on the night, but you didn't tell us about your journey.
Are you struggling to keep your writing organized? Trust me, I've been there. I want to introduce you to Scrivener, the ultimate program for all writers. You can outline, draft, and even edit all in one place. Whether it's your next novel, screenplay, or even thesis, Scrivener helps you stay focused and finish strong. Scrivener adapts to your workflow. From your first draft to the final edit, it's a writer's secret weapon. Click on the link below and get started on your Scrivener writing journey today.